I won a lot of off-roads, lot of off-road stuff, a lot of like, running the Indy Lights and stuff like that. In the Indy Lights was the kart series. Then it went into like all the pro series with IRL, I guess it, or whatever you want to call it back then. And I was driving for Hamilton. I won that national out there in the first year, and probably should have bagged a couple other finishes, wins and everything when I was like second, catching the leader, had the better car, and that was the beginning of that series. And there were a lot of mechanical or engine issues and everything in that first year, and kind of had those engine issues that kind of kept me from getting that good finish up there. But throughout the years though, with off-road stuff, like I said, I won a couple stadium championships and a lot of off-road races and stuff, and obviously motocross and everything. So
That's amazing. What's motocross like?
well, just riding dirt bikes and racing ATVs. I mean, it's obviously a total different type of racing than driving a car, because you're riding, you're not sitting down, strapped in with a seatbelt. And it being a motocross track, you got flying jumps and corners and everything. So it's just more physical, and it's just, more balls at the wall because you're doing like triple jumps and doubles that are like 40 to 60 feet apart from one another. And you just got to go, because if you don't do it, the guy right behind you is going to pass you, and because he's going to do it. So there's a little bit more at risk. You could get more serious, even though the speeds are a lot less, but the chances of falling and breaking your arms and stuff or legs are much higher than actually driving a race car. Even though you got like the higher speeds in a race car, you probably have, if you already get injured in a race car, you got more serious injuries and everything, with head or neck and back injuries.
Yeah, for sure. I know what you mean. I've been in an off-road car before. They're a lot of fun as long as you don't crash.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome. I've tested a few when the big trucks were starting in their development, or the trophy truck series and everything back in the '90s. I tested in a few of those back then, going across the desert, and it's an unreal feeling. Just seeing the desert terrain and seeing like the little narrow like dirt road you're going down, and you're doing about like 120 in this truck and going over these like row of whoop-de-doos or drop-offs or little inclines, and that suspension is like what, 36 inches of travel, and you just float like right over the top of it.
Yeah, for sure. Have you seen Robbie Gordon's new series, Stadium Super Trucks?
I've followed it before, but haven't really paid too much attention to it. I was down at Long Beach a couple of times when they're running around the Long Beach Grand Prix. But it looks. I've seen it on TV a few times too. I mean, it looks pretty cool. It would be like totally fun. It's still like an off road truck, but you're on a paved road course. With these big jumps. I mean, those things launch them pretty high, and you're hitting them. I don't know how fast they're going, but I mean, they're pretty much hitting them like wide open.
Yeah, do they look similar to what you experienced at Mickey Thompson's series?
Pretty close, but the jumps weren't as big, because you're in a smaller track, so to say, a smaller arena, and they didn't want the trucks to get out of control and end up in the stadium, up in the stands and everything. So because they sit right there, pretty close to the tracks and everything.
Yeah. What's your biggest win in your entire racing career?
Biggest win,
Hmm.
it probably would have to been the one in the Indy Light series, because I was like the kind of closer on the big stage and everything. I didn't win any on the big stage, so as far as like in front of all the IndyCar teams, um, a lot of the big stadium races I won. I mean, those are always cool, and then going back to they have a race in Montreal once a year. They're like a stadium off-road motocross race, and I've won that like 6 times. So I mean that race is always cool because there's something different about the environment when you're at a. It doesn't matter what track you're racing, but when you go to Canada, they're like the most intense, best like race. I mean, they're just diehard race fans. They're into everything, and they always come out to like I raced at the Vancouver Grand Prix and the Toronto Grand Prix. And it was just always the best race that I always liked going to because they're just like so involved with motorsports. Regardless of what type of cars that are there, they're just 100% behind it and like going out to the races. So whenever we would go race the off-road cars up in Montreal at Olympic Stadium, I mean, they would just pack that stadium. It'd be sold out. Kind of like what an old Mickey Thompson race would be back in the 80s, sold out stadiums and just having a good time. And so that was a good stage, good race to win.
Good to hear. Was it Circuit Gilles Villeneuve? Is that the track in Montreal?
No, well, it's because it was a stadium off-road race. So they did it in the Olympic Stadium when the Olympics were held, the same arena where they held the Olympics back in, I think it was the 70s or something. It's
Okay.
a huge stadium. I mean, it's big, it's massive. Like the floor is like the track there is like bigger than any other stadium track that I've ever been on, or any like supercross track. If you follow supercross at all, that stadium it's just a huge floor grounds.
Yeah, for sure. That's really impressive. What's your favorite track to race on?
Favorite track? Wow. Well, obviously, I mean, I would have to say Indianapolis, or at least at the very most, for just that's the one track that's always challenging. I mean, it seems simple; it's like a giant rectangle with 4 corners, but those 4 corners changes throughout the whole day. Track temperatures, shadows coming over the stands, and half the track is in sun, half the track is in shade, or just different things. One end of the track, because it's so huge, one end of the track you have gusty winds, the other side can be like totally calm. So it changes, and so it makes it very much challenging. Especially when you're a rookie trying to learn where the winds come from and following the weather. That's probably really the only one track that being a meteorologist would really help you a lot because you're just always following the radar systems, like when a front's going to come in and everything, or what direction is the wind blowing. Even around the track in the corners, they have the orange sock hanging up in the corners. They got the whole row of flags all around the track on the top of the bleachers, but they actually have like an airport, the orange cones, and each angle of that cone is a certain mile per hour of gust of wind. So when you see it going straight out, I mean, it's just like a solid, that's a strong wind right there. Well, if you just see it kind of like one thing sticking up and the rest is hanging down, then you could get an idea of how strong the wind is. And that's one thing you pay attention when you're going around the track, or you're looking at flags to see where to try to judge the wind, what angle it's coming in. Because I mean, just a gust of wind, it pushes those cars around.
Yeah, for sure. That's really amazing. Have you ever been to the Daytona races?
I've never been there for the 500. I've been there testing. I've been on the road course. I've been around the oval in an ARCA car. I tested with Andy with Andy Hillenberg on the oval with his cars and everything. And it's a fun track. This is different. I mean, the banking's really high and just long bank corners. So I mean, as far as a driver, my first time going there, it's equally, the track or the race to win. Obviously, the 500, like Indy.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Indy just has more world recognition because they're open wheel cars and stuff, and just longer history. But if you've never been to Indianapolis or Daytona, for me, my impressions going to Indianapolis was just, like at all, like, whoa. Your first time walking through gasoline alley, you're just like, it's like a pinch me moment. And then when you get out there and you look at the stands, the front straight, you're looking down to turn 4, you're looking down to turn 1, and you're just like going, holy crap. And it's a long straightaway, and how narrow the pit lane looks, how narrow the actual track is versus when you see it on TV. It doesn't, TV doesn't give you any anything about what it is actually in real life. But when I went to Daytona the first time, when I was testing the ARCA car, I didn't get that same feeling. But even though it was still cool, it was still kind of like, oh, I'm at Daytona, I'm driving this car around. But it wasn't that same thing because it's still a giant D-shaped oval like every other giant D-shaped oval I've been to. Racing at Michigan or California Speedway or, Texas. It just kind of has that same feel. So it wasn't like anything really different than just Indy or IMS. It's more, you know, unique in its own way because it's a giant rectangle.
Yeah, makes sense. What is your funniest racing memory of all time?
Funniest racing memory?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't think of that, or just offhand right now. I don't know. That's a good one. I'll probably think of a bunch after this.
No problem. But what's your greatest memory of racing?
Greatest memory?
Mm-hmm.
Well, racing in general would be the 500, and racing just cars in general. Um, I would just say everything, the whole aspect of motorsports in general. Being able to drive these cars, whether it's a dirt track car, off road car, an F2000 car, or just testing a sports car or something, or testing other cars, and just the whole family around it, around motorsports, from like someone like yourself, like media people, to the officials, to the other drivers, and the guys who spend like timeless hours, putting these things together so you could go out and enjoy yourself. So just being around that whole arena for racing, for me, it's something that I truly actually loved about racing. So it's kind of like really hard to say what is one thing over the other. It's the whole thing, the whole aspect of motorsports and the competition. Being a competitor, you're as a competitive person, you really enjoy that. So
Yeah. How do you transition from being a off-road driver to a IndyCar driver, knowing they're two different kind of cars?